And you and I've got a coaching call here at 50 minutes after the hour. So
Boom.
let's get efficient
Yeah.
because I know what we're
Get
talking
to
about.
it.
We're talking about today is a couple things. Number one, what does the great Jeff Jacklich know about pattern work that maybe you don't? And really, how does pattern work create clarity in your own unique style of play? You know,
Right.
one of the things that we were talking about when we were kind of cooking up what we wanted to talk about today, Jeff, was how there's so much instruction out there that is so generic, as if it applies to every possible player out there, as if they have the exact same physical abilities, the same mental abilities, the same whatever abilities. And part of what we're going to talk about today is how you've got to do some self-discovery, and that you might be listening to some guy on YouTube who's going, well, you got to do this, this, and this. And you go, well, okay. And guess what? Those things don't work for your body, for your mind, for whatever.
Right.
So,
That is the nature of the beast. Yeah. Because everybody has their own kind of internal natural instinct on how to play the game. Once you get to a certain level, you have your natural, inclinations to do certain things. So, which is why we have baseline grinders, serve and volleyers, counter punchers, aggressive baseliners. I mean, every combination of every adjective we can think of is there. And so one size does not fit all.
So self-discovery is an important thing. And I would, before I ask the question about pattern work, is if you've got a coach, you got a pro that you're working with, absolutely make sure that that person is looking at you as a unique individual and actually knows how to coach you based on who you are, based on what
Yeah.
your natural God given abilities are, as
Yeah.
opposed to shoving down, well, we got to go full Western on that forehand. And, we got to do this and we got to do that. Well, why? Well, because it's kind of what everyone else is saying to do, right? No. So, Jeff, let's talk about pattern work. And this is your topic. This is something you want to talk about. I know that you've been working on it in your own game recently, but also
Yeah.
in terms of how you're coaching others. So tell us because I asked you the other day, I said, all right, well, what's your definition of pattern work?
Right.
And how does it apply to helping us get clarity about who we are as a player? It's all yours.
Right. So first, even before we get to the pattern part of it, is as a player, I like to take steps back in my match play and kind of you have to be able to become an observer of yourself, just an objective observer, kind of without judgment, and really look at like what's going on here. So the last couple of weeks, I've been paying attention to where my errors are coming from, and not necessarily unforced errors. Just in the heat of the battle, where does my all of a sudden I miss a backhand a foot wide. All of a sudden I just hang a forehand 6 inches below the tape. All of a sudden I whatever. And the discovery for me was like really kind of like stepping back from it and looking at it was clarity on shot selection. And it didn't matter the degree of difficulty necessarily. If I was clear about my shot selection and confident with my choice, I pretty much made that ball almost every time. I mean, the error in that category was very, very low. But the bulk of the errors came out of that. I'd finish hitting and I would literally feel it. Like, God, it was almost like an out of body experience. It was just like, I was so unclear on the choice. And I kind of just last second then, I guess I'll just go here. And somebody from the outside might be looking and go, well, there was nothing wrong with that forehand. There was nothing wrong with that stroke. And technically probably, yes. The problem though, is that if I'm unclear on my choice, on my target, then how can my body perform the task to its highest level of efficiency? Guess what? Here's the answer. It can't. It can't. So in this process then of thinking about it, when I Brent and I talked, we talked a few days ago or last week. It was like, I've been paying attention to this in my own game. And so what I came back to in it was, and the last few single sets I played and double sets I played before the weekend, whenever it was, over the weekend, I made a significant point of saying, okay, so let's pay attention then to your pattern play, and let's stick to the patterns. Let's reduce our improvisation. Let's reduce our need to think I need to get out of the point right now. Let's just like pay attention to this and see if I'm even in the slightest bit undecided, go to the pattern. So the pattern work, now circling back to that, actually even before I get to that, I know I sound a little jumbled today probably, is that what happened though in that process as I'm playing is my error count just went way down. Quality of shots that I hit went way up overall. Some of the points lasted an extra 2-3 hits maybe, but the finish was so easy because literally the player was off the court by the time I got the ball. That was just like literally hitting volleys down the middle of the court because no one's on the court to finish points. So all the categories kind of just went ding, 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 just went right up the scale in terms of quality output and quality result. When I actually backed off of that indecision and just went, let's just play the patterns, let's stick with them, and then go from there and see how the point really flushes out. So
yeah, so let me stop you for a second. So there's two things. Number one is shot choice, clarity of shot choice. And to me, it's kind of like a chicken and egg thing. So pattern work, as we talked about before a few days ago, my interpretation of pattern work is that, okay, well, I'm going to play one ball over there because I've worked this pattern. It doesn't matter who it is over there. I've worked this pattern. I'm going to play one ball to the ad court, and the next ball I'm going to play one ball to the deuce court, and then that third ball I'm going to play somewhere, as if my opponent is going to cooperate with me each and every time in terms of giving me a ball that would make sense, that there's a high percentage that I can go here, there, here, as if patterns are 2, 3, 4 shot combos. And you and I said, well, no, that's not true, because what happens with the combos is they're not going to necessarily cooperate with you in terms of giving you what you want for that pattern. So that's number one. But number two is the clarity. And for me, the clarity is really, and I would venture to say this is why you had such great clarity, is that we all have a potential list, but just a potential menu of shots that we could hit off of this one specific ball that our opponent has given us. I could go up the line, I could go in the middle, I could go cross court, and I could have different spins on it. I could top it, I could slide it, I could drop it, I could approach on it. I mean, right there's a combo of 7 or 8. And for me, I know that when the first instinctive shot choice that comes into my mind, if I just commit to that, if I stick to it, even if I tell the guy, Jeff, I'm going cross court, then I'm better off doing that than trying to go through, yeah, but maybe 2, well, but maybe that third, well, and by the time you get to the fourth menu option, you're so screwed up, you have absolutely no clarity, that you really don't execute anything. So that's kind of my two things, and I don't know which one comes first. Do we work the pattern first? And to me, pattern is based on my opponent. I find like I get the ball I want because I keep working this guy's backhand over there with my slice backhand. And And finally, after 3 or 4,
Right.
I get the ball I want, which now works in the pattern, which is I get
Right.
to approach with a forehand somewhere. So that's
Right.
kind of that's my feedback, or that's my interpretation of what you, of when you say clarity of shot choice, and I'm spitting everywhere, clarity of shot choice,
So excited.
sorry, and pattern work in terms of what that means.
Right. So when I do pattern work on the court with the players that I'm coaching, and Rich can attest to this. Rich Franks is with us today. I literally will go over across the net and hand feed a specific pattern. First ball, back, just make the guy hit a backhand. Second ball, I kind of feed in a manner that makes my player have to work to get around to hit a forehand. We're assuming that we want to hunt forehands all day. And so what I do is I'll do a 3-ball pattern, forcing the player to do something that maybe they don't naturally do, or they've always done this other thing when they get this type of ball, and that other thing is actually what's ruining their ability to work the point. And this, for me, is kind of like with Rich, was the breakthrough for him, was getting him to see why the choice he was making out of that pattern was actually hurting him and not giving him the advantage in the point. So the pattern work I do is specific. It is kind of what you described at the beginning, like the expectation is, here's the first ball, here's the second ball. Now, if you get this ball, do this with it. Regardless if the other guy knows where it's going, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And so the way I kind of work it with my players is that because we do combinations of patterns, I do one pattern and then there's another pattern that is kind of a hybrid of that pattern. That what I let them know then, as they become comfortable with the patterns and start to move smoothly from ball to ball, and they stop making choices, they start responding automatically with that ball, do this.
To the pattern, yeah.
And so the minute I get them across that threshold a little bit, now I say, okay, now it's cut and paste. What ball are you receiving that allows you to start a pattern that works in your favor because your opponent likes to do X, Y, or Z? So one of the things that I'm going to keep going here for a second, Brenny. I see you got something on your lips there. So one of the things with, again, I'm going to use Rich today because he's with us. One of the things with Rich was when we were just rallying, I would push him into his corner, his backhand corner. He liked to think, well, I think I should just rip this down the line. And every time he did it, he hit a nice ball, beautiful down the line backhand to my backhand. I would just hit a kind of a floating slice cross court, and Rich was nowhere to be found because he would get the ball to me too fast. Did he hit a nice ball? He felt like he struck the ball well. Everything's going great. And so now he takes that ball and he rolls a high backhand cross court roller and just totally neutralizes what's going on. And now he's on the hunt for a forehand, right? So it's that kind of pattern work that I like to get involved with the student and show them, listen, you're hitting a good ball, but it's actually being counterproductive because the pattern you need to throw at the guy right now, I need an automatic response on this ball.
Yeah.
Not what you think is going to end the point.
So first of all, Rich being a left-handed player, that's why his backhand to your backhand up the line, just for clarity. So so in terms of pattern work, I can see two things. Number one, patterns are based on opponents' strengths and weaknesses over there. Or patterns can be, well, here's my plan A, Jeff. Here's what I like to do. So I used to have a pattern that was totally based on me, had nothing to do with my opponent back in the day before I, right around when I turned 60, I had to kind of change it. But everything was serve and volley and singles. And so so I would work on those patterns in terms of, and had nothing to do who was on the other side of the net. Now, as I got a little bit older, I started to realize, even with that, with serve and volley, it wasn't like I went through everybody in the draw. there was still,
Right.
you'd still bump into some guys. Well, okay, that pattern for you, Brent's plan A, but guess what? It's not working against this guy. So
Right.
you've got to be able, and I hate to call it plan B because it's really all that you're doing, because plan B is just another form of who you are, which has nothing to do
Right.
with the guy over there. You've got to be able to analyze, wait a minute, my plan A against this guy, you know what? It's not working in this one situation. So we're not going to
Right.
wholesale get rid of it. We're just going to go, I got to make this
No.
little tiny adjustment in my plan A, which is based on me. But now we're sort of incorporating both. Well, now it's opponent specific, the pattern, and
Right.
it's myself specific. So how do you help Rich in that sense, in terms of identifying who he is, what's the best pattern that he could play, assuming that all opponents are the same, neutral.
Right.
And then and then once you hone that, how do you help Rich identify, wait a minute, this pattern that you love isn't quite getting the job done against this opponent. And what was you, oh, it's cut and paste is what you said.
Yeah. Cut and paste the pattern. So first, it's building a menu of patterns, right? So that, like you said, is it like, oh, plan A is not working? Not necessarily. What it is my initial plan A was putting these patterns together because they favor me, because I like the way that feels. So the adjustment is simply that pattern today is really not something that's feeding my strength today. It's actually feeding my opponent. So what adjustment can I make? What other pattern in my menu is going to suit the needs here better, or at least neutralize what my opponent is doing to me, so then I can move on to a different pattern to create advantage for myself, inflict some pain, and start getting the ball that I want. And where's that target that fits that pattern that I've already practiced? So the deal is that I'm going to keep circling back to this today, and that is this: when you engage in pattern work, what you're doing is giving your mind the opportunity to stay present tense in the point and in the match, because you're not, every time the ball comes over, I'm not running through this laundry list of possibilities. I know I get this ball in this part of the court, I do this, and I know it inflicts this much pain, and I know I'm going to go stand here. And most of the time, again, because my opponent is going to help dictate which of those scenarios is actually going to play out best for me. But most of the time, when you start to do that, what you will notice is that even if my opponent knows where I'm going, the fact that I'm hitting a higher quality ball creates the advantage for me. Is that I'm asking my opponent ball after ball after ball to have to live in a higher quality playing state for a longer period of time. And if I can do that, I am just spending all match just tapping on this guy's forehead, just waiting for the wheels to come off. And here's the deal: you may discover the right pattern in a match, or patterns. It's usually a combination of things. And you know what? On that day, with your skill set, the best you can do might be a 7-5 victory in the first set, because he's working himself too. My opponent doesn't want to cooperate with me. That's kind of the deal. And so what you have to realize is that the work is the work. In order for me to get the win today with my skill set against this opponent, the best I can do probably is a 6-4, 7-5, or tiebreak win over this guy. Now the second set may flush out and may open up for you, because maybe this guy just can't hang mentally, and maybe you break it out and get an early break or something, and then it's 6-2. Or it could be, it's a dogfight from start to finish. It's a 6-6, it's a 4-5, it's a whatever. But the pattern work allows you to stay in the present tense, because you're not arguing with yourself about what to do with the ball.
Right.
And that for me is the biggest bonus. It's the biggest advantage when you start engaging in pattern work, is that your responses are much more automatic and you're just confidently moving from ball to ball, because I'm not worried about the opponent. I'm not worried about whether he touches the ball or not. That's not my objective. My objective is to take this ball right here and make it land where I need it to. That's the objective.
Yeah.
The fallout from that is that maybe this guy gives me now the ball that I really want, that I take control of the point of. You see, so it's all layered. One ball doesn't necessarily give you complete command of a point. The one ball might give you, boy, you know what? He just hit his forehand to my forehand. But because of the ball I gave him, his forehand came off about 10% less accurate and about 10% less pace, which means now I get to step up to a ball that looks fat. I'm still on the baseline though, so I'm not just going to paste it off for a winner. But now I get to, my ball now has higher pace, higher quality, higher. So now the next ball he gives me is a little less quality. It's this graduated layering of just working it through the system, through the patterns, until the result is inevitable almost as you work through it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. A couple of years ago, I had a chance to be with Glenn Erickson, to be in the court with Glenn Erickson, who's pro at the Palm Springs Tennis Club, great player. And this guy worked with Jose Aguirre for 6 months back in the day, 6 days a week, 3 hours a day, do the math on that one. But what he learned from Jose Aguirre was that, and he kept telling me, he said, Brent, when the ball is right there, when the ball lands here, you do this one thing every time. And it doesn't matter if that guy knows it. He says, maybe once out of 10 times, you go somewhere else just to kind of keep a little doubt in his mind. But he says, once the ball's here, here's what you do. And I said, well, I mean, okay. I mean, it's like, could we make the game any more simple? And I think that that's really what you're getting at, Jeff, is that you're going, when you get the ball here, do this every time. Don't think about tech, and you got to trust every time. You got to trust that, fine, let that guy guess where you're going to take it. Maybe 10% of the time you go somewhere else with it just to kind of keep a little self-doubt going over there. But you want to create clarity in your game to such a degree that you don't try to fake the guy out. Because look, I mean, I think I've had a post on Facebook the other day, I talked about disguise, about false advertising, right? And that just means that from the same setup, I can hit 3 or 4 different shots. I get the same look, right? The guy doesn't know what's coming. But I'm not going to go, okay, I've got 4 possible shots out of here. Number 1, lob. Number 2, slice back in. Number 2, a little semi-topper. Number 4, dropper. That's not a pattern.
No.
It's not a pattern. I'm going to take the best ball that I'm given, and from the same look, I'm probably going to go slice back in. All right, here's the dropper.
Right.
So I think
but see, those choices though are defined and reduced down to all of a sudden from 4 to 2 to 1, based on where did the ball come from,
right?
How much pain did you inflict, and and so that helps. And where are you getting the ball in your strike zone? Where's your positioning on that ball? You still have the advantage, but forcing. I want to do this with the ball no matter what is a recipe for disaster. So it's really critical that the pattern work itself also, as a byproduct, helps you define your next shot selection, without again getting overly heady in it, in that process. So Rich just he wrote, the patterns that Jeff teaches me helps keep me extremely focused on a plan during each point. Sometimes the plan changes, but my defined focus helps me adjust. Well said, really great. And so Rich says also, it was a mind blower when I first went out there in a match with a certain pattern, and it actually worked.
I'll tell you what, Rich, he's not charging you enough. Some guys charge you and it doesn't work. He charges you and it works. Yeah. So I had another thought about the clarity Oh, I know what it was. Is that, it's funny. I've learned this more, I guess, on the clay, where I've been playing the last 2 years, been playing over in Croatia on the red clay over there. And you have to be a little bit more patient than you might be on a,
Yeah.
indoor hardwood court, right? But I think, and part of the clarity for me is that I become more confident when I have fewer choices, because number one, I trust my instinctive first shot choice. I trust it no matter what. Um, Number two is the confidence that I get from that. Sometimes is I might have an opening that's pretty good, but if I throw in another cross court rally ball, it almost tells this guy, dang it, he's not looking for the exit. He's actually okay staying in the point. And I think that is, not only does that give you another layer of confidence, but I also think it can put a little chink in that guy's confidence armor, going that, God dang it, my opponent is happy to not pull the trigger on something that's maybe low
Right.
percentage, not looking for the exit, willing to stay in the point. Gosh darn it, I wish he'd make a few
Yeah.
unforced errors.
And the issue with that, Brent, and I think that's really important here for everybody, is that Brent's not pushing. He's hitting a high quality ball, he's choosing a target, and he's inflicting more pain. And so when you do that, it's not about just keep the ball in play. Oh, just push it back over there, because that's not doing anything. That's just living in kind of a neutral world and giving the other guy an opportunity to kind of groove and get comfortable with hitting the ball and that kind of thing. We're still inflicting pain. We're still doing damage. And we're asking our opponent now to stay, what I mentioned earlier, in a high quality answer. Keeping him, the guy's going to have to produce, bend the knees, watch the ball, prep, blah, blah, all those things, right? So it's really critical that that awareness is there. The other thing that happens too, you do pattern work and you just focus on hitting it, whether the guy knows you're going there or not, is you will discover then, is your opponent, where's his shot tolerance? Is he a 4-ball guy? And then you can see the guy just, and then he's got to go for something, right? Well, once I discover that,
Yeah.
guess what I'm doing today?
Right.
I'm gonna let this guy win the match for me. I'm just gonna keep pushing him into the corner or whatever the pattern is that day, and push him into that fourth or fifth ball. I've still got to hit high quality, and then this guy starts the wheel starts to come off, and ball 5, ball 6. It's as I'm coming to the net, the ball's just screaming past me at eye level, out.
That's right.
Whatever it might be.
Right.
But that's part of this too, is that a lot of players, because they're not aware of it, they don't discover where their opponent's shot tolerance is. Where is that? And so if I can figure that out, I tell you what, it makes the day a whole lot easier. Then you don't care if the guy comes up with you paste the line on a winner every now and then. Beautiful. That was great. That was worth 1 point. Okay, you just missed 3 forehands in a row though, wide. Okay, I'll trade you 3-1 all day.
Yeah, don't you don't you love it where a guy misses 3 in a row and then he hits the greatest shot of his life and he goes, "Come on, baby!" It's going, man, you're hitting 250. You're kind of a. All right, guys, look at. Want to read your feedback here. So fill up the chat area. I got a question for you. What's your number one takeaway so far in what Jeff has talked about today? Maybe is there something that we've been talking about that you're not 100% crystal clear on? Let us know in the chat area. But I always love to read the takeaway, because that is something that's like an epiphany. That's like an aha moment. And again, we're not giving out tips.
This is not a tip.
No, this is not a tip place.
This is not something you dabble in.
No. So Steve's asking, do you decide your patterns during warm-up with your opponent? And my quick answer would be, if I'm playing a tournament or a league match and I've never seen this guy and I've done no intel in terms of asking someone else, hey, so-and-so, I play so-and-so tomorrow. Do you know anything about this guy? If there's absolutely nothing, might do a little probing, in the warm-up, certainly in the first couple of games, because the warm-up's not always a complete open book on someone. I mean, someone can look great in the warm-up and you kind of go, uh-oh, this is going to be a problem.
I've gotten my ass kicked in the warm-up in a lot of tournaments.
Yeah, then you throw in your crappy
come back the next day and play.
Yeah, and then you throw in your lousy second serve in the first point and the thing gets shanked somewhere and you go, wait a minute.
Where is that?
And the opposite is true. The guy looks terrible in the warm-up. The next thing you know is he's not missing and he keeps putting me in trouble. So what's your answer to that question?
So my answer to that too is this: is when I'm warming up, I'm looking at his grips. Is he doing major grips to get from backhand to forehand? When he comes to the net, is he changing his grip? What does his slice backhand look like? Does he look comfortable doing it? What things in the rally as I'm watching this guy hit balls, what kind of looks uncomfortable? Is there something? And most of the time there's kind of something that looks like, okay, well, maybe that's something I can poke at and kind of see what's going on here to figure this out. And so that's for me, Steve, that's what I look at. I look at those things as I'm rallying, and I throw in a roller, I throw in a slider, I throw in stuff because I want to see the different parts of his strike zone to see how he kind of reacts to the ball. That's a big tell, is like what the guy does when the ball's high in the strike zone, what he does mid-range, and what he does low. There are some things there that can be really great, some great red flags to kind of go, there you go. That's what I'm going to poke at. The other thing for Steve, everybody is that the patterns you learn are going to be born out of who you are as a player. So if you like to, whatever it is, if you think you're a baseline ground stroker, that's great. But now what patterns are you're going to learn patterns now that do more than just let you sit back on the baseline and retrieve balls all day, because you're going to run into players that know how to counter that. So your pattern work has to be based on creating opportunity, inflicting pain, and forcing your opponent to actually have to execute high quality ball after ball after ball.
Yeah. Listen, the other thing I would say too is that there's so much emphasis on instruction out there today on being what I think is a very limited type of player. Everyone's talking topspin. Everyone's talking topspin forehand. And to me, look, let's be real. No one, unless you're on the tour, unless you're a young buck, if you're a senior player, the chances of you developing a weapon out of a topspin forehand so that you don't need to develop any other patterns is someone just selling you a bunch of goods, bunch of garbage. So, and I know the work you do with Rich, Jeff, is that we're trying to help players become, all court players in terms of you've got to be able to visit all parts of the court. You've got to be able to hit all the different shots. You don't have to hit every one A+, but you've got to be able to adjust. And for me, Jeff, for a while, I couldn't do that. I'd been such a serve and volleyer. I'd been such a chip and charger for so long that when it came to having to stay in a rally, oh my God, I mean, I couldn't breathe, right? So
a rally.
So for me, it was it was that realization that I wasn't an all-court player, and even though I was working with Tom Stowe and I was known as an all-court player because I worked with Mr. Stowe, which was his thing. You got to have the all-court forcing game. I wasn't. I was basically I couldn't stay back if I had to. So I guess my hope here is that everyone don't think that you need to go out and develop this massive weapon, because you're not going to. You're just not going to. And you'd be better off spending your time shoring up some weaknesses so that at least you can stay neutral in the point. And so we got a funny here. I got a funny one here from Andrew, who says, I like the concept of using patterns to stay present. Great tip. I'm assuming he's making fun of us on that one. So Randy's saying, my takeaway, if you are not clear what you want to do with the ball, how can your body prepare? That's a good one. The pattern gives you clarity of thought. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Alex is saying, you have a plan, a pattern if your opponent is really better than you.
Yeah, my first plan is when we change sides, I pull a Kerrigan.
That's the
I hit the guy in the
kneecap.
knee with my. I hit the guy in the knee with my racket.
Yeah. No, look, I
No,
mean,
um,
listen, I would say first, I've been in this situation, I'm playing someone better, and I think I have to raise my game. I've got to do things. And that's just a recipe for making more unforced errors. So, I mean, the term is you got to make this guy beat you. And sometimes that could be, let's see how bored we can make him. Let's see how much time we can take between points. Can we take the full 25 seconds? Can we take the full 90 seconds on the side change? And can
yeah,
you not make mistakes? Can you just sit there and make this guy today have to hit where normally his winner count might be 12% of points won? Can you make it 50%? Can you force this guy to hit 50% winners?
right.
Um,
Right. I think a big part of that too is again thinking that you have to come up with something magical. Um, and that's kind of what Brenny's alluding to. Like it's not all of a sudden I need to play to a level that I've never played before. You need to think to another level that you've never thought before, and you need to get yourself out of your own way. What's the solution today? And it doesn't matter whether that solution is I'm going to moonball all day. It doesn't matter if whatever you come up with that you think is actually, or you seeing that you're actually getting results from this one pattern or concept. Ride that horse till it bucks you off, and then move on to something else. The chances are, I mean, there's if we ran the numbers, maybe you're going to lose 9 out of 10 times to this guy. So don't get caught up in this like this thing. Well, I have to beat him my way, or like I've got to somehow now I've got to my backhand now has to be 25% better than it normally is. No, what's the solution today? And maybe the solution today gets you to a 4-4 loss. Okay, what did you discover along that way?
totally.
So
Yeah.
being in the moment and in the match, if you have the clarity at the end of the match to be objective about, that was a big mistake for me to feed this, but you know what, I found some light at the end of the tunnel when I did this, and I actually broke the guy's serve when I did this. I didn't return well enough in the next couple games, but the game I returned a little bit better in, when I got the ball to this place, it created an opportunity for me. So the layers of this isn't just about beating somebody better than you. It's really the whole objective, being able to observe yourself and be objective about what you're discovering.
The other thing too, at least I've found, or I discovered over when I was going from a B player before we had the NTRP, and I was definitely a B player, is that I found that it wasn't, just like you said, it wasn't really about beating someone who was better than I was on that day, but it was what can I do to stay close enough to this guy so that when I come away, even if I lose, that I've learned something about my game, just like you said. And all of that adds up to building layers upon layers of confidence. And look, this game is not about, well, okay, I'm a 4-0, that guy's a 4-5. How am I going to beat him today? Well, the chances are, if the ratings are actually accurate, which is a whole nother discussion about the NTRP, but assuming that the rating is accurate, the chances are you're not going to beat this guy today. So what can you do to build some confidence today? And just like you said, it could be, you know what, I'm just not going to miss. I'm not going to miss, and I'm going to see what I learned from that. And look, I would say in the beginning, when I went from B to B plus to become A minus, was when I started having 3-set losses to the top guys. And
Right.
I would go, you know what? I must be getting closer. I mean, nothing else. It's kind of like I must be getting closer.
Right.
And um, so that's, I guess that would be my answer is that don't think about, well,
Right.
how do I beat someone who's better? The reality is you're not. But what can you do today to make this guy have to really work for it and do some
Right.
more self-discovery? Like, I'll
What
never
other
forget
piece of the puzzle can I discover? What other piece of the puzzle can I discover in my own game? And maybe that discovery is, when I finally came up with a pattern that actually seemed to inflict some pain, and I won some points with it, but then he made an adjustment. And so maybe the piece of the puzzle is you're witnessing a guy make an adjustment against you who solved the problem in X amount of time. And so we have to be able to sit back and get away from the emotional attachment of what happens winning and losing and all that, to be able to look at it and kind of go, oh God, that was really great. This guy did this. And I go, wow, I never thought about doing that. And he solved it.
yeah.
Okay, that's discovery. That goes into your database. And so next practice that you go out to, you kind of go, huh, okay, let's give this pattern a try. Let's see what's happening here with this. Wags, what does Wags say there? Please speak to spotting their movement in the warm up. For example, someone smart would notice with me that this guy's strokes are great, but he can't run 2 feet.
Well, look, and that's, I mean, Mark, if I was to play Mark, the last thing I would do would be to try to hit the ball firm and to try to get it, try to hit the ball firm. Because if I don't hit a corner, it's going into that forehand of his, which we know is large. It goes into that backhand, which he hasn't missed since 78, I don't think. And so if I was to play you Wags, guess what, man? Drop shot, lob over your backhand, right? I drop shot you again, lob over the backhand. And that's it. And look, I think Mark's right. I mean, there's lots of times in warmups you play someone you've never played before, and you notice that and you might not notice in the warm up because typically you don't drop shot a guy in the warm up to see about his speed, but you might find out that I want to get back to the last thing, and we got a call here in 5 minutes, Jeff. One of the matches I played where I really jumped up in confidence, even though I lost. The first time I played Brian Cheney. It was in Santa Barbara in the 50s in the quarterfinals. And it was a 128 draw. And I wasn't seeded. I had no bye. I'd already played, I think, 4 matches just to get to him. And I knew that he was number one guy, number one seed, legend, and all this stuff. And all the guys, go, oh my God, Brian Cheney. And I'm going, yeah, man. So I kind of went out there in the first few games. I was a little tight, a little bit nervous. But then I had this feeling like, look, let's just relax. And I don't know what the words I told myself. But whatever I did is I relaxed enough to where, as Sean Brawley said last week, the whole thing about the mental part of the game is, can you get yourself out of the way? Can you just get away? Just get yourself out of the way of this thing. And I did. And the next thing I felt is he's bringing me up to his level. I'm not fighting my way to get up there. He's pulling me up here. And it was like this feeling of just freedom. Like, I can play at this level. I've never played this level before, even though I lost 3 in the third, lost first set, won the second set. And then, of course, a couple of my idiot friends say, you can win this match, Brent. And I'm going, God, you're right. But thanks a lot. But there was a moment in there where I got out of my way and he brought me up to his level. And I'm playing up there, and it wasn't a short breath, panicky type of thing. It was, I can move this well. I can hit this shot if I'm relaxed. I can do this. I can do that, which I'd never done before. And even though I lost the match, I came away with this confidence, Jeff, of knowing that I've just experienced playing at this level for maybe an hour and 20 minutes that I never played at before, meaning like, I didn't know I could play there. I didn't know I could play at that level. And so I think to kind of wrap this whole thing up, and we got 2 minutes before we got to talk to Andrew, is to kind of go back, circle back to what you talked about today. A lot of that is just clarity. Learning how to play at that level that you haven't played at before is about clarity and
Right.
about being less confused out there, which is, as you're talking about, you do the pattern work, you trust your first shot choice, and you get clear, and the next thing you know is you're playing at a higher level. So
Right. And I'll end it with this, that actually there's in the chat on the other side, Jeff Peterson, Dave Whitman asked questions that we're not going to get to, but so Jeff and Dave, Jeff Peterson, Dave Whitman, if you just write that question down and send it to me at letusknow@goldballhunting.com, I'll be happy to get back to you and answer those. So the pattern work also does this, is that it helps you reduce the need to look for the exit. And that's just massive. What I just said is massive. It's not a tip, it is a key to the kingdom. Your pattern work will help reduce dramatically your internal need, that pride, that ego thing that says, I don't want my opponent to touch the ball. It'll help reduce that need dramatically because you're just working, you're just focused on execution. I get a ball here, I go there. I get a ball here, I go there. And I know some of our players that, that work with us, Brenny, can attest to that. When they start doing that, they find the quality of the ball they're producing just goes way up, way up.
Good.
So
why don't you call Andrew and then call me, and I'm going to stay on here for one more minute. And Jeff and David and anyone else whose question's not been answered, the email address is letusknow@goldballhunting.com. Jeff will get on that. Jeff, why don't you sign off, and then I'm going to quickly. Thanks, man. Great
see you guys.
Great session today. Jeff, let's see. Do you want me to sign you off, Jeff, or you can do that yourself? Okay. Jeff, to answer your question about movement, there's no question that the cleaner you move on the court, meaning quickness and endurance, being able to do it for 2.5 hours in a long match. But the other thing too is that movement is also based on being able to visually track the moving ball that's coming at you, so that you, with your footwork, you're consistently creating the spatial distance that you need away from the path of the incoming ball, so that stroke technique becomes simplified. If you're overrunning balls or you're underrunning balls, or if your timing is too early or it's too late, you're going to be inconsistent. So there's no question. There's absolutely no question about movement, and I can give you some ideas on movement if you want to. Send us an email, letusknow@goldballhunting.com. And then David, so how does brand development relate to developing a pattern menu? I can't tell you, man, because your brand could be different than mine, and that's why I sort of argue with coaches and teachers who are saying, well, there's only one way to do it. What Tom Stowe did with us is Tom Stowe gave, and I was in the court with 3 other guys, and we were all sort of different in terms of physical abilities, mental abilities, all those kinds of things. He gave us a set of fundamentals, but then he told us, you got to take your personality and put that personality and lay that down on top of those fundamentals. And so I might have the same fundamentals as the guy next to me we both worked with Tom Stowe, but we look like completely different players because we have taken our own personalities and laid them down on top of his fundamentals, and that becomes our own brand. So hope that has helped. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Hope you enjoyed today's session. Until next time, get out there and help someone else have a great day, and we will do this again soon. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.